100 Years of Cox. This is 100 Years of Cox. I am telling the story of 10 siblings from the Machel Cox family through the letters they wrote to each other. They were born in England between 1868 and 1884. 7 of them lived in England and 3 lived abroad in the colonies. In this episode, I will read 7 letters, starting in November 1906. Berkhamsted School has chickenpox, influenza and whooping cough, and Garfield House School closes early for Christmas due to an outbreak of measles. We get hockey news from Vera, and the siblings discuss the correct literary use of the exclamation mark. And we also hear how the Reverend Dr Cox detests carol singers and delights in chasing them away. Meanwhile, the siblings continue the debate as to who has the worst handwriting. Bernard's letter, Sydenham, 28th of November 1906. Dear family, thank you all for your letters. I don't know which is the most interesting letter, and if I did, I should not like to say. Avis, I think your Chinese hymn is a perfect gem. I can quite imagine Aldwyn singing it. Our gentle and pleasant Veronica. A delightful description of the budget baby, though very slightly exaggerated. Well, she is cock-a-hoop today. Kent ladies have beaten Middlesex ladies by 10 goals to 1, and the budget baby distinguished herself by shooting 4. Goals, I mean, not Middlesex ladies. I'm finding the literary supplements most interesting. However, I may say that nothing in literature moves me so much as the advertisements for Mother Lidget's syrup, Doan's backache kidney pills, and Eno's fruit salt. Forgive my flippancy, but I'm wanting my dinner. Cuthbert, what do you do at a Browning Society? I have read very little Browning indeed, but what I have read I would call prose, not poetry. Enid, I am glad you support the Times regarding the book war. You will be amused to hear that Father was highly disgusted upon hearing you and Cyril back the Times, and it very nearly turned him round the other way. I won't discuss the question in here, as it gives rise to such bitter feelings. The other bone of contention is put out of sight for the time being. Trams are sidetracked. Arthur, I am glad you can have a hot bath now. Talking of baths, there is a delightful story in the Pall Mall magazine Christmas number of 2 old ladies in a bath called A Painful Dilemma. I must congratulate the latest contributor to our budget on the clearness of his writing. In spite of its length, I found Edmund's letter very interesting. I think that the longer the letters are, the better. Nobody is compelled to read them unless they so wish. The red ink is certainly very useful for drawing one's attention to badly written words. By the way, Edmund, there are no less than 50 words underlined in black ink in your letter, exclusive of proper names and titles of books. What are these black lines for? Talking about using churches for teas and dances, etc., I noticed that an eminent nonconformist divine said during one of his sermons that there was nothing sacred in brick or stone, as church people thought, and he advocated using churches for gymnasiums. If this idea could be carried out, St. Paul's, I suppose, could be utilised as a roller skating rink, and what a splendid place Westminster Abbey would be for Sunday school games, such as hide and seek and I Spy. I suspect Edmund might not think highly of my suggestions. Edmund, I notice you ask Enid what relation she is to John Smith. She was his great niece, as he was Mother's uncle. Will I receive a prize for this, please? I have carefully examined all the letters, and I think Cuthbert's and Edmund's are the most unsightly. Enid's and Avis's are the clearest, which is very exceptional for Avis indeed, so congratulations, my dear. Arthur's is the most pleasing to the eye. Bernard's is far and away the best. Dorothy's is the most flowing and easy, and Vera's letter is all straight lines. Now for books. Skipping is allowed here. Bernard actually writes reviews on 9 books, which I'm not going to include now, although he then goes on to say, I don't seem to have read very much lately, as I can't think of any more. Tomorrow evening, Mother, Vera and I are going out to the Georges to play bridge, quite in a friendly way. Father refuses to go, as Mrs. G was so rude to him last time. Of course he couldn't play, but she insisted on him trying, with unfortunate results. Vera and I went to the theatre to see Peter's mother on Monday. It is very good, and Marion Terry is charming as the mother. I see that the Gilbert and Sullivan operas are to be revived next month at the Savoy. We must go and see some of them these holidays. I expect the teachers among you are getting rather busy now, with the end of term approaching. I hope they will all remember that short letters are better than none. I shall want a lot of Edmund's red ink this time, but it is late and I must be quick, so this will catch the midnight post. Kisses are enclosed for the lady members of the budget, optional for Dorothy. Your affectionate brother Bernard. P.S. Down with the suffragettes! Cuthbert's letter. Number 2, Chapel Street, Berkhamsted. 3rd of December, 1906. Dear Bavardee, this beginning is for Edmund's benefit. It is to show that I have solved Vacabed. I notice that no one says he or she is pleased to see my handwriting, and indeed I plead guilty. If Edmund's critical red ink succeeds with me, as it has with Avis, then you will all have to thank him. This is the most expensive foreign paper obtainable in Berkhamsted. I think that the arrival of the budget is the most exciting thing in the month. I laughed so uproariously over your letters last time that my landlady nearly gave me notice, on the grounds that the house was too small for that sort of thing. I have just had Enid stopping for the weekend, and needless to say she was much impressed with Berkhamsted, and was very sorry that Owen is going to Rugby instead of here. Edmund, Arthur and Vera are now the only members of the family who have not visited me here, and in the case of the latter, this will soon be remedied. Now to talk about my athletic prowess. I've been playing football regularly for the old Berkhamstedians, and after our bad start, we have been doing really well and have won our last 6 matches, so the club has, at any rate, justified its existence, and we ought to be certain of playing in the Dun Cup against the other schools next season. The chief events here have been an extra half day, a field day, and illness. The latter, including chickenpox, flu and whooping cough, have been rampant this last month, claiming victims from all ranks. More than half of the staff have been very seedy, but I personally have been in offensively robust health. So many boys being absent has rather interfered with work. Arthur ought not to read this page, as it is not correct, I am told, to know anything about illness at another school. The field day on the common was a very great success, and we individually and collectively covered ourselves with much glory and mud. Dulwich supported us, and Epsom, and the 3 Bedford schools opposed. O gentle and pleasant Veronica, beware of ambition. You won't get a vote, even if you play for England. Has Mrs. Geek asked you to coach her girls in basketball yet? My congratulations to Bernard on his prize, but he must not get too greedy. Can he tell me what relation our nephew Christopher is to Sam Leake? Also, whether he thinks it likely that young Christopher will ever be privileged enough to wear the india rubber shoes in which Sam Leake's father danced on the night before the Battle of Waterloo. This is a joke, Edmund, with some foundation in fact. As to books, I seem to have read far too many. In fact, I can hardly remember anything about some of them. Puck of Pooh's Hill by Rudyard Kipling pleased me immensely. I liked the poem Smuggler's Song the best. I hope my criticism has not put off people reading H.G. Wells' book In the Days of the Comet. I want to hear whether others agree with me or with the newspaper reviews. Well, I hope I shall escape the much well-deserved blame I came in for last time. This writing is still unsightly, but it is, I hope, more legible. My compliments to you all. Cuthbert. I just want to repeat one sentence from this letter, in case you thought you misheard it. Cuthbert did indeed say about his sister, "O gentle and pleasant Veronica, beware of ambition. You won't get a vote, even if you play hockey for England." The year is 1906. Most of the siblings are outraged at the militant behaviour of the suffragettes. More on this later. And Vera will have to wait until 1918 before she's allowed to vote in an election. Cuthbert gives a review of 12 other books as well. Some of them read a great deal of books. You can tell there's no TV and no movies. And as for social media, well, they wouldn't have a clue. Arthur's letter. Garfield House, 5th of December 1906. Dear family, if I were to adopt Edmund's playful mode of address, your collective title, as far as I am concerned, would be A, B, C, D, E, V. I therefore could have started my letter, Dear Badvek. I have now elaborately given the show away for the benefit of those who are puzzled by the conundrum. I cannot lay my hands on any good foreign paper, and therefore am reduced to this, which I am not sure I like. Also, it must be distinctly understood that I do not have time to write a short letter, a favourite paradox of our dear Mrs. Wimbush. Although this may turn out to be a long letter, as Bernard has already remarked, no one need read it. Next, as to writing. I was quite aware that in criticising Cuthbert, who has made a most praiseworthy and successful effort this time, it was rather a case of the pot calling the kettle black. But I made no special effort to write my level best, or even as beautifully as I am now, because my point was that ordinary bad writing was perfectly permissible, but extraordinary bad writing not so. At the same time, I had an apparently mistaken idea that my own scribbling was reasonably legible, and I still think so. Honestly, when I opened the budget and saw all those red lines disfiguring my old letter and some others, I had not the faintest idea what they were all about. Certainly I had not the faintest difficulty regarding any of the words in question when I found out why Edmund had underlined them. After all, reading is part of one's education as well as writing. Very few people, apart from the commercial classes, would stand the test of having a single word cut out from its context for all the world to decipher. This is, I am aware, one of Edmund's strong points, and indeed a pleasing epitaph for him might be, "He dotted his I's and he crossed his T's." At the same time, a critic might point out that Edmund's letters present certain difficulties to one unversed in reading between the lines. By the way, I have an artistic objection to the frequent use of the note of the exclamation. This is not specially for Edmund's benefit, but in a general sort of way. There is no doubt that it does have its use in the right place, though it would perhaps be difficult for everyone to explain exactly the shade of meaning intended to be conveyed. When used merely to point out a joke, it comes under the same category as underlining. Good wine needs no bush. I think it is rather like an untranslatable Greek particle, and my own use of an exclamation mark in correspondence amounts as a rule to no offence meant. After which academic discussion, I feel I ought to go back and sprinkle a few such apologies among my previous remarks. As you will perhaps have gathered, I have a very small supply of news at my disposal. It amounts almost entirely to this. One confidence deserves another, and I make Cuthbert a present of the information that we have a serious outbreak of measles here. Only 4 victims are actually recorded as yet, but there are very many absences, and I suspect the number of cases will rise substantially. Our acting and the prize-giving have had to be postponed next term. It may even turn out that school shall fizzle out, and we may have to break up early. Edmund, I don't know how you keep fit enough for your league football. I couldn't do it, or anything like it. My figure is a perfect parabola, and I'm rather disturbed about it. Dorothy writes to me today that the old curmudgeon, Mrs. C, will not allow Burgess to teach Dorothy leather work. Is it not outrageously dog in the manger? Dorothy is getting a bit sick of Porlock by now, and I expect we shall flit somewhere else before Christmas. Dorothy suggests Linton. It was a pity Mother was not here when I was reading the budget. She likes to hear me laugh. There's no accounting for taste. By the by, I have a feeling that Avis thinks too lightly of her offence in keeping the budget 8 whole days. I hope this is not so, and I also hope she does not make a habit of such delinquency. I know all about Mother's hair and why it is a taboo subject, but wild horses shall not drag me into the discussion. I congratulate the budget baby on her great doings in the hockey world. I hope she keeps Aunt Annie informed of her prowess. I have a vivid recollection of seeing a stately, white-haired dame being rushed through her own goal by stalwart, high-stepping forwards, of whom our gentle Veronica was one. Edmund, you have my sympathies in your efforts to thwart the Philistines, and I think your energy is beyond praise. At the same time, I detest bazaars, but of course they can be profitable. The humble jumble sale, a curious juxtaposition of words, is a poor thing, though honest, but the end does not always justify the means. Vera, your letters are excellent. Don't be afraid of boring us with 2 sheets of paper next time. Literary comments from all are most interesting. I much enjoyed reading The Life of Froude by Herbert Woodfield. Indeed, I burnt a whole midnight candle over it. I should like to hear the verdict from you historians. The small boy, Froude, who is the great historian's grandson, is inspired by thoughts of his famous grandfather to start a history of his own. He has taken 1066 as a convenient starting point. Love to all, Arthur. Arthur also reviewed a further 8 books in his letter. Dorothy's letter. The Ship Inn, Porlock Weir, 10th of December 1906. Dear Budget, thank you for your kind words of welcome to my humble contribution. I don't think that in my case Edmund will have cause to complain of quantity, though as to quality I have my doubts. I was touched by Cuthbert's kind consideration in buying good paper and writing so legibly on it. His letter gave me unalloyed pleasure in consequence. I can't really believe that Edmund found difficulty in reading all the words he underlined in red ink. If he did, I don't wonder that reading the budget is a serious addition to his day's work. Arthur has explained my latest sorrow, that I can't get lessons in leatherwork after all. However, I mean to try on my own, as Burgess has already given me some hints. But after seeing his work, I'm afraid I shall feel very much disgusted at my own results. Arthur comes here tomorrow, having had to start holidays almost a fortnight sooner than usual. All the boys have been sent home early, on the advice of the doctor, on account of so many cases of measles. Term begins again on January the 10th. I expect we shall stay here, but I don't know until he comes. Incessant rain, wind, and a smoky fire for almost 4 days running have had a disastrous effect on my spirits. But now that conditions have improved, I think we might stay here. Mrs. Perkins does things very well and is a good cook. They also have a dark room, which I hope they will offer to Arthur for the use of his photography. I only hope he won't find my airiness and the lack of a bedroom window very chilly and miserable. You all write very nice letters. I always enjoy Enid's news about her family. I'm looking forward to hearing news of Christopher from Mary, who goes home to Terrington this week. I have been greatly interested in Winston Churchill's book on the life of his father, Randolph. I don't know when I've enjoyed a book so much, but as I expect you have all read it, I will spare you my comments. I particularly enjoyed reading Reminiscences of Lady Dorothy Neville. I was amused at her account of the old King of Bohemia playing at Snow Mountains with her during her childhood at Munich. I thought it was a game peculiar to the Cox family. I have got such a horrible pen, but it is the best the village shop can supply. I am afraid in consequence my writing will be more illegible than usual, but no one need read it, as Bernard tells us. I think Edmund's energy in tackling his huge parish is splendid. I am afraid he must be very overworked. Best wishes to everyone for a happy Christmas. Your affectionate sister, Dorothy. A note about Dorothy's handwriting, which is large, flowery, ornate, and quite beautiful, although very hard to read. It is quite different to the handwriting of all the Cox siblings. They don't teach handwriting like that anymore. And if you are interested, look up the Ship Inn, Porlock Weir, near Minehead. It is still there, an old pub with a thatched roof next to the sea. You can imagine, as I did, Dorothy staying there in the wild winter of 1906 and asking to have her window completely removed to help ease the symptoms of tuberculosis. Vera's letter, Sydenham, 14th of December 1906. Dear family, I am only going to write a short letter as I am in bed, suffering from a slight attack of flu and bronchitis, but I hope to get up tomorrow. I read the budget in the train on the way back home from New Cross, and, quite forgetting that I was not the only occupant of the carriage, I gave vent to my feelings, much to the astonishment of a man who was in the carriage with me. He moved up closer to me, under the impression I was having a huge joke with him. I was very thankful that just then the train arrived at Sydenham and I could escape. Cuthbert, you have not sent me your old letter. You really must remember to do so. I've had to send the first budget off to Aldwyn without it. We are much troubled by carol singers, though I believe Father in his innermost heart enjoys the rush down from his study or the drawing room, the slamming of the front door, and the disgust of the carolers. The other night he was in fine form and had 3 successful sorties, but then he almost succeeded in sending away a man who was bringing him papers. Just to let you know what an important person I am, I will give you 2 extracts from the last 2 numbers of Ladies' Field, although unfortunately there have been no photographs yet, except 2 bad ones in last week's edition of Ladies' Pictorial. We expect to see Kent do great things. Their right wing is very strong. Miss Cox, who occupies the inside berth, has come on out of all recognition. She played a quick, dashing, energetic game, with no suggestion of hesitation about it. She took Miss Evans's passes very clearly on her stick. And there is no more improved player in county hockey than Miss Cox, Kent's inner right. She is as quick and sharp as a needle, and on the ball like a flash. With such a centre and such an inside right, Miss Gibson gets plenty of chances. Fancy that! They are writing about little me. Kent have done very well this season so far, having played 5 matches and won them all, scoring 26 goals to 3. I have just read Peter Pan in Kensington Gardens by Barry, illustrated by Rackham. It is brought out in the same style as Rip Van Winkle last year and is simply delightful. You must all read it. Yours affectionately, Vera. P.S. Carr has been playing hockey for Newnham College this term and also plays in a combined Newnham and Girton team. She wrote me a letter telling me all about hockey at Cambridge. Explanations on this letter. If you are interested in the poet Rupert Brooke, who died in World War I, do an internet search on Carr Laird Cox. Carr is spelt with a K. She is a cousin to the siblings and was a notable early 1900s character, linked to Rupert Brooke, Virginia Woolf, and the Bloomsbury set. Sounds like she was a bit of a shocker. The other thing in this letter, which is absolutely true and very funny, is Reverend Dr Cox's dislike of carol singers. He detests them, and there are several mentions in letters of him racing downstairs from his study, shouting, and subsequently chasing the poor carol singers out of his front garden. Quite entertaining, especially because he used to be an Anglican parish priest. Not the done thing. Oh, for a time machine. I would love to sit down for tea and a chat with my very peculiar great-great-grandfather. Next letter from Edmund. Edmund's letter. Woolly Moor, Christmas Eve, 1906. Dear Vacabed, I have 10 minutes in which to write, so I can get this to the post in time. Fortunately, this will catch one or two of the family at Christmas, so that I shan't be blamed all round for not writing. I expected that it might be possible I would receive the budget at this time, but I did not think it would be quite such bad timing. I have been keeping it back, quite hoping I might be able to add a letter, and I think my improved paper shows willingness at any rate. I hope you won't all say I told you so when you see that I have kept the budget longer than a week on only its second visit to me. I am so thankful that my bazaar is now over. It has been a strain with all other work. It certainly was successful. I expect we shall make about £50 when the accounts are made up. I will go to Long Eaton late tomorrow evening for 2 or 3 days' Christmas visit to see May. I have managed to catch a cold again, but hope it will come to nothing. My best Christmas and New Year wishes to everybody, and please allow me to send my very best thanks to all of you for all your Christmas presents, even if I am just a little previous. I enclose my bazaar book for those of you who may be interested. Congratulations to the Vacabed solvers, from its poor, overworked member Edmund. Time! I leave my old letter in for Vera. Both Avis's and Enid's letters have been lost, so we're back round to Bernard again. Bernard's letter, Sydenham, 8th of January 1907. Dear family, I start by telling you all that note of explanation is described by Webster's dictionary as a sign by which utterance or outcry is marked. If mother could only utter a note of exclamation at the end of her little speeches, what a lot of breath she would save herself in between whiles. The note of exclamation is supposed to represent a person standing on his head. In prehistoric times, anyone who had made a joke, given utterance to a paradox, or had been extra rude and wanted to make some sort of apology, would at once reverse himself. Then later on, when people began to write, they used to draw little pictures of themselves upside down in cases of this sort. In the stress and hurry of modern life, these little pictures have naturally got more and more impressionist, and the result is the note of exclamation as we know it today. Arthur, see what you have let yourself in for by starting on this subject. You have now received a lecture from your eldest sister and a dissertation from your fourth brother. Perhaps by the time this reaches you, your youngest brother may have also had something to say on the subject. I think fractious pedant is a good name for you. Cuthbert, I am always very pleased to see your handwriting, even when it is as bad as this scrawl of my own. I don't quite know why you want to know the relationship between young Christopher and Sam Leake. I believe little X, as mother calls him, is Sam's first cousin, twice removed. Yesterday we had our second progressive whist party, at which several of the budget contributors assisted. I think it was a great success, as the shining lights of the party far outnumbered the wet blankets. In fact, I think Mrs. George was the only wet blanket. We have been a very pleasant and gentle party for the Christmas holidays, in the absence of both Arthur and Aldwyn, who are apt to become rather uproarious at times, like most Cambridge men. I, of course, was at Oxford University. All the same, the bear fighters have been sadly missed. Vera, I hope you carry your hockey stick with you in the train. It may come in useful if you read any more budgets on a railway journey. By the way, you were much inquired after at the whist party. The general impression was that you were being kept in the background to give Avis a chance in the matrimonial line. Of course, I explained to everyone that this was quite a mistaken idea. How vulgar! Thank you all very much for the delightful birthday presents, which I expect to receive on February the 15th. I have no doubt that they will be just what I wanted. Enid, I hope you didn't kill your delinquent housemaid. You wrote that she was to be dispatched at a moment's notice, which sounds quite horrifying. I have started the new year in a new partnership. Old Archer has retired, and our firm of stockbrokers, Hunt, Cox and Co., now consists of Reeve, myself, and young Hunt. We have agreed to be partners for 5 years, and we ought to know by that time whether we suit each other or not. It is curious to think that a little over 2 years ago, old Mr. Hunt, Uncle Henry, and Archer were all still in the firm. Father is sitting next to me and is doing his best to interrupt me. I have invited him to send you all a New Year's message, but he feels the solemn importance of it to be too great. The very idea of sending his precious words hurtling into space to drop down haphazardly on different continents where the scattered members of the family may be resident shocks his sense of the due proportion of things. When the scattered members of the family return once more to the parental nest, he is inclined seriously to think that they will find that as his physical powers wane, his mental perceptions become more keen, and that his ready wit sparkles with an increased brilliance. Ah, Dr. Cox has decided he will send you all a message after all. Although I have not touched on the education bill or tariff reform, I am inclined to think that there is about as much sense in my New Year's message as in the majority of those now filling the papers from prelates and politicians. Reverend Dr. John Charles Cox. Bernard continues, please note that this New Year's message is in Father's own words and handwriting and not mine. Mother refuses to send a New Year's message, as she says she writes to you all quite enough, thank you very much. She is also much amused with your various letters and thinks the family's inventive powers with regard to their parents are marvellous. I am quite aware that all this is very much against the rules, but it adds a charming variety to the budget. I also enclose a letter from Aldwyn to me, to be kindly circulated with the budget. Though Aldwyn has not yet heard of the budget's existence, his letter is written in true budget vein, and serves to show that a valuable contributor, such as Aldwyn, has temporarily been removed from our midst. Cuthbert, I trust to your honour not to remove Aldwyn's letter, so everyone may read it. Literary supplement, published monthly, price 6d. Peter Pan by J. M. Barrie, illustrated by Rackham, is absolutely delightful. I must agree with Vera. The Treasure of Heaven by Marie Corelli. I must confess, I am very much ashamed of myself, but the book was in the house. I therefore blame Vera, and was supposed to be about the Minehead district. As we know the area well, that was my reason for starting her book. The scenery description, however, is poor. The village Wearcombe could not possibly exist on the Somerset coast, between Minehead and Linton, as it's supposed to do, with its beautiful golden sands, etc. What nonsense! Anyone who had done any research would know about the cliffs and the pebbled beaches. As usual, the good lady goes for the press, the church, and the smart set as she imagines them. One parson who already has 4 parishes of his own, near Dunster, takes on Wearcombe as well, for 3 months during the rector's absence on holiday, and at once introduces high jinks. The book is full of blunders from beginning to end, but the crowning one of all is when she talks serenely about a bull heifer. The plot itself is not bad. If only she could forget her good self, and leave out all her own opinions on current events, and not be so spiteful and silly, and then go in for another education, she might write a decent novel. I think this is quite enough. Needless to say, I don't recommend this book to you. I am starting a blacklist of authors which are to be avoided. We can put down the name of the author, and the person who considers their books should be avoided. I consider that Marie Corelli should go at the top of the list. I would also like to add Guy Thorne and H.G. Wells. And now, good night. It is bedtime. Weep with me, my family. Fred Strutt comes to stay on Friday. I know he is highly regarded by father, but I need say no more. Your affectionate brother, Bernard. Explanations about this letter. Bernard is so embarrassed at having read one of Marie Corelli's books that he only refers to her using initials. She was a popular English best-selling novelist known for melodramatic writing. Her books were largely criticised by the literary world and considered as cheap novels for the common public. However, before the First World War, Marie Corelli sold more books than both Arthur Conan Doyle and Rudyard Kipling, although her name, interestingly, is virtually unknown today. Her books are detested by the siblings, considered to be full of errors, and Dr. Cox is known to rant and rave about the author he describes as that woman. Bernard also included a further 9 book reviews in his letter. I just picked out some of the most interesting ones. Fred Strutt, who's coming to stay with them in Sydenham, he was a very wealthy man of the large mill-owning Strutt family of Derbyshire. Dr. Cox can be a difficult and cantankerous man, and it appears some of his friends were equally so. In the next episode of 100 Years of Cox, Cuthbert has been enjoying the theatre in London, watching Gilbert and Sullivan at the Savoy. Vera starts work as a temporary housekeeper at Garfield House, Arthur's prep school in Plymouth. Edmund has ordered a brand new bicycle with 3 gears. Wow! And he is playing a lot of whist. Avis has been to watch Vera play hockey in the East versus North match. Vera can run very fast. Enid is indulging in an attack of influenza and is reading a lot of books. And Neville's first letter is included in the budget from South Africa, and he has also been going on bicycle rides. You have been listening to 100 Years of Cox. If you'd like to write to me, please send me an email to machelcoxletters@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.